The content of this podcast episode comes with a warning. Please note, this podcast episode may touch upon the subject matter of suicide. If you or someone you know is currently considering suicide or is in a crisis, please contact 1-844-437-3247.
Mind, body, and soul. The information is the goal. Try to learn something new without being distracted.
After you read a whole book about somebody going through all the regrets and thinking about what they should have done, like the whole I should have told my dad I loved him or whatever, I wonder if any of us will be looking at changing something. I don't know.
I think the book will change
Yeah,
us. No
for
matter
me, it absolutely carried the lesson of perspective.
what. But I think all books will change us no matter what.
All great
Not
art,
me.
actually.
I'm just joking.
Not me.
Yeah, no.
I'm
I didn't
fairly
learn one
rigid.
word call. Not even one.
I refuse to be flexible.
Huh.
Not
I don't
happening.
like that. I don't want to learn lessons.
Oh, really? I love it.
Well, just because even
Same.
you guys talking about it, I was like, what would be a book in my regret library and library? And I already thought of two that I don't want to say on camera, but I was like, oh, that's so uncomfortable that I
Want to
can't
walk
do
through it
anything
again?
about aside from die and relive.
But if you were like, if the librarian was like, okay, so you regret that, so would you like to go and live it as if you didn't do that thing you regret? And then
but
you
I
would
don't
go.
have to forget this life, right?
It's called her root life, so she doesn't necessarily forget. She just
Right.
knows that all of the other things are like different avenues that coulda,
Well,
woulda. It's really
well,
like.
Oh, but then you don't get to have someone like I can't. It's so hard. It's
Well,
like
the premise also is that she hated the root life so much that she, spoiler
Killed
alert,
herself.
killed herself,
Mhm.
right? So she's not like, oh, but that one thing I want to hold on to in this root life. She already decided her root life was garbage. Like she was done. She was
but
out.
didn't wanna
gotta
hold on to
Baby
any of
Max,
it.
So I don't want to forget Baby Max. That's why.
Different choices may not mean that Max doesn't come, right? You could still have Max in these other
Mhm.
lives. It's just
Hmm.
because well, one of them was funny. Like, this isn't a child, this is a pet, but she had a cat in her root life. And then she
Yeah.
goes to this other life and she still has the cat, but it's a different cat, like same name, different cat. So you could have another Max, you could have a boy Max.
Leah, you were saying how, you were thinking of regrets. When you guys are talking about this, like I have lived my life 100% that I don't regret anything that I do because I've made mistakes, yes.
Mhm.
But then now I'm like, does that just make me a psychopath? Like that I'm
Yes.
not, that I, thank you, Leah. No, that I don't, like I made those choices. I did them. Yeah, some things were kind of shitty and some things that weren't maybe the right choices or whatever, but I made those choices and they make me who I am. So I think that if I died, I wouldn't have a library because maybe if I rack my brain, I could pick out a couple of things. Like I wasn't nice.
But
enough
little
to
R
person.
regrets.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like,
Not the
Little
big
arts, I like
ones.
that.
but it doesn't matter what it, like you guys are talking about parallelly. I think because I have this
Mm.
very linear idea, there's no point in regrets because this is the way it was. That's the way it was. This is the way
Yeah.
it is, and that's
So
the way
for
it's gonna
you,
be.
it might be more like
Mhm.
when you made those choices for yourself, right? Because you've always
Yeah.
been confident in that way. Just the curiosity, like I wonder if I would have
Yes.
stayed with that person instead of
Yeah.
going to Australia or whatever. I wonder what would have happened
Totally.
then.
And I
So you
think
might have had a
that's
book of
why.
curiosities instead.
Yeah, and that's why I love the idea.
You got a
Like,
curious
yeah.
library. Yeah.
Yeah, like I love the idea of being able to make different choices and have a different life. I just, in my mind, it doesn't have to be about regrets.
I'm going to share because it's a mind bender, because I think most of you will agree that this is a double. My regret is a big one that's going to be probably a little uncomfortable. So brace yourself.
I like how you waited this whole time. You're like, can I say it? Can I not say
Can
it?
I?
Okay, I'm gonna do it.
Talking about it makes me feel really heavy. We're
very curious.
I've had an abortion in my past, and I don't regret having the abortion, and nor am I against abortions. However, I feel a lot of shame on this topic. That would be my big regret, because I would imagine most people who have had an abortion it doesn't feel like the right choice, even when it is. It's a hard decision. So thinking about that regret made me think, oh God, well, first of all, it made me think, fuck, I'm gonna have to talk about it in therapy now. It's like the one thing I'm like not crossed into.
You've been holding it.
Yeah, I was like, I just don't want to
Not
feel
ready.
that it's such a big personal shame for me that I know I made the right choice, but I still carry the guilt. So that for me is the big R in the library.
First of
Yeah,
all,
it's like a
can I come
pose.
over and hug you?
Aww.
It's interesting that you say, like, you know that it was the right decision, right? So it's almost like that
Mhm.
parallel
Well, I think
decision or
yeah,
mindset
that's a
or thought
pickle.
process, right? Yeah.
I think it's speaking to that whole cultural thing and those gender things and all of that
Yes.
stuff, because
Oh.
you know it was the right
Yes.
decision for you, and your guilt and shame must be born out of this outside force then that you've internalized, where I should have the like whatever.
Interesting.
Yeah,
That's
where's
what
the
I-
shame
Thought of
come
that.
from? Like that's
Well,
probably
the
the
Yeah,
reason it
that's the
became a
thread to pull
judgment
on.
is because the shame part. Whereas
No, it's not it's a personal judgment. I think to unpackage it, I would have to first define my ideas about life. When is something living? I would have to first do that.
Mm-hmm. Your values
That's a
too.
big. So I'd have to suss that out. And then the guilt of it is, I don't know. How could you not? Like, it's just,
Wow.
that was my baby.
Yeah.
Like, how could you feel good about it?
Well, again, I think there's a lot of outside pressure, right? Like, what are you
think
telling
so?
yourself? Are
Yeah.
you a murderer? Are you a bad mom?
No,
Are you
I'm not.
like,
I just,
was that your baby? You haven't defined when it's
I
an
don't
actual
know.
thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like all of those things. It's an exploration of your values and your beliefs. And then
yeah, that's a
making
good
sure those
point.
beliefs are your actual beliefs and not someone else's beliefs
True.
that got put on you, because
Yeah.
half of our beliefs come from our parents, which came from their parents, which came, right? And just like,
From our
Yeah,
culture,
I
from
think
our
that's a good
that's
society.
really clear.
All right. I think
I
that's
think
a good point.
what's
That's some good
hard-
homework to think about too, because it has been weighing on my mind, particularly because I've had a little spell of like agoraphobic behavior of late, and those spells started happening after I had an abortion. So so it's kind of top of mind, and I have therapy tomorrow, so I guess I don't have to think about what I have to talk about now.
There you go.
And both things
Pop
can be
it
true too,
selective.
right? Like it could have been the
Yeah,
right
both
choice
things
for
can be
you,
true, I think.
and you can still feel bad
course.
about it. And
Yeah,
and you make
that's
yourself feel
interesting.
better by knowing that was the right choice for me. It's not my favorite thing I've ever done, but I know I honored myself, or I did what I need, you know, like both can be true
Yes.
too. It doesn't mean that you're going to solve it and then all of your negative feelings about it will go away.
Yeah, maybe part of me when you were saying that, Kim, was like, I don't want my negative feelings to go away about it because it's all I got.
Mm.
Do you ever have that about something where it's like you want to stay sad because it's all you got?
Yeah. Well, and that's
like-
that reminds me of that thing where when people die, like grief is
Mhm.
just love with nowhere to go. So
Oh.
you can have that for your baby too, right?
Yeah.
Like your
And
grief
that you have to
remains
love-
because it's the love for the baby that you
And
couldn't.
you may have it forever. Like some of the hardest
Hmm.
things, it's when things aren't simple, when there
Mm.
not just one answer, when there isn't just one way of meaning making.
Hmm.
It's that you're having to hold many things within you, and there is no black or white, right or wrong.
Yeah, it's complex.
Oy.
I
Thank you
think
for
too-
sharing.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
brave.
thanks,
Like
Leah.
good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, good for me.
Totally.
And I think
Sort
that
of.
if like sometimes in your life you might regret something, kind of like what Meredith was saying, like because you're still dealing with it, but maybe in, you know, a year or two or whatever, you're like, oh, that was, you know, I'm not going to regret that because that made me who I am, where I am, what I'm doing. I have I have more time, or I have the opportunity to do this, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I think
Also-
you regret during times of your life. Yes.
In the
Yeah.
theme of this book, if we want to play it out in a way that maybe you wouldn't regret it. So you have your baby, and then your baby is a psychopath and kills your mom.
Oh God.
Right? Grows up to be a
Oh my
wild
God.
teenager and shoots your mom or whatever, right? Like, no, but seriously, infinite possibilities. The whole point
It's
of this
true.
book is that you attach the story that's like the happiest one, so that makes you feel the worst, when really that baby could have been so many different things. It could have ruined a marriage. It could have set your house on fire by accident. Maybe it was perfectly lovely, but it accidentally started a fire and killed your dog. Like, who knows, right?
Yeah.
You
So you love it.
You hear about it in the news every day.
Scenario.
Those
That's
babies
worst
that
case
kill
scenario for
dogs.
me. Everybody dies.
Those baby killing dogs. Horrible.
Very weak dog.
You know, like
He's on the elderly dog community.
So just
No,
be
I
careful,
understand
because
what
your
you're
regret
saying.
could be like, right? Like your baby could have been a bad baby.
Bad. It's a bad
it's
sign.
important. It's important to remember where you are in life sometimes when you make certain decisions too,
That's a
right?
good
And
point.
if you're
That was a very different
if you're confident of remembering where you were in life and the decisions that impacted or your thought process for the decisions in which you made, I think if you stay confident in that, sometimes that will help remind yourself that you don't have to have these regrets because you made the best decision for you in that time, in that moment.
I think Virginia makes a really valid point, because in a different position in your life, you could look back and judge your old self because you think that your old self is your current self or something. But your old self
That's what I was
was,
thinking too.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Book interrupted.
Oh, hello there. I'm just at the local public library, and wouldn't you know it, coming up is Menstrual Hygiene Day, and what? Would you look at that? I read that book. Look at this. Look at this, friends. What a great assortment. I couldn't be more delighted to see this book.
Book interrupted.
You know what's interesting? So my jeans pick that for this book, well, we'll just call her Beth. How about that? When I was chatting with her about doing this podcast and some of the themes that are coming out of it, so hers was to take more risk in her life. So if she's reflecting back on this book, the message she got and the lesson she got was that to take more risk in life. So I thought that was interesting. So instead of, like she said, sometimes she holds things and worries about the outcomes or has some like anxiety about, well, if I make this decision, if I do this in life, how's it gonna, play out? And so what she got from this book was basically not to overthink it, just take more risk. And I thought that was really lovely, so.
I think
And
kind of
it
like
was just
speaks to
different
her personality, right? Because
Yeah.
like some people, like if people ask me advice about a big decision, I'll just say like you have to ask yourself, will you regret doing it more or not doing it more? Which one will you regret more? And some people are more likely to regret things they do. Like, oh, I can't believe I did that. And some people are more likely to regret things they didn't do. So maybe she's the type that regrets things she didn't do, and she can feel that like risk averse behavior holding her back. Whereas like I'm the type that would regret not doing something. So it's usually a question, should I or shouldn't I? I'm like, well, I probably should, because I'll always wonder if I should have done it. So I'm not risk averse. What's the opposite of risk averse?
I don't know.
Risk shy.
Risky?
Risk takers.
Risk takers.
Risky. I think it's like
Risky.
speaks to personality, just like you're
Yeah.
saying, Mary. Like if there was someone who was like super impulsive, they might read the book and be like, I should really see some things through. I could have whatever or whatever, right? And then if they're someone who never does anything, they might be like, I should do more things.
Mm-hmm.
And has that changed in your life with age and experience?
Has it
Like,
changed?
have you become riskier as the years have gone on?
Maybe
Or
more
have you
confident
become
in the
less?
decisions, whether they're
Yeah.
risky or not risky,
Yeah,
more
maybe more
confident in the
confident.
decision to do either.
I've always been like, when I was a kid, I looked to take risks for sure. Maybe I take
Yeah, I've
less,
always been risky.
I take less like hurting myself, like things that could hurt myself risks now, probably with kids. But
Sure, yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know. Oh yeah, I take
think
risks,
that-
but maybe I'm calmer. than
I
when
take
was
risks
young.
too, but it's different than Meredith. Like,
You're
I-
calculated risks.
I
calculate
decide
for a
to do something big, and then I work it back to do it. So I plan it. So I don't really have that many regrets either, because anything I've wanted to do, I just
I'd say
figured
you're
out how to
risky.
do it.
Yeah. You
Yeah,
take
like
risks.
I've had so many people say to me when I'm going to do something, well, what if it doesn't work out? And then I'm like, then it doesn't work out and I start again. I basically started my life over lots of times. So I kind of done what this, I've gone to my own library and been like, whoa, that was a mistake. Let's start again. and then
File
oh,
that.
that wasn't so great. Let's try again.
File that on the lesson learned section.
Yeah.
I love
exactly.
that.
That was,
You really have, Sarah. I think of all people I know, you have like restarted your life like 100% completely. I'd say 1, 2, 4 times, 3 times.
Yeah.
I was thinking like
3 for
moving,
sure. Maybe
moving.
3.5. Yeah.
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 Oh yeah, I guess 4, kind of 4.
Yeah.
I
But
can't
like, you're
wait
right,
for your
4.
next incarnation.
Yeah.
That's the thing. That's my, anytime I change, it's like move, change my job, like change everything. I was like, new slate, wipe it clean, start again.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I wouldn't really have a library because I'm doing it now. But because I had to wipe my slate clean at 21, like I did everything I'm supposed to do and
Yeah.
I wasn't happy. So I was like, holy crap, you could just pick whatever you want to be happy. You don't have to do or should do anything. So what do I want to try this time?
To learn
And
that.
mom was always like, you can do anything you put your mind to. And she'd always say, what's the worst that could happen?
That's
And
true.
then she's like, so it doesn't work out. So what? And you're like, oh yeah, that is the worst that could happen. All right. And so like both, like I think everyone in our family is just like, okay, let's just try this.
Like it doesn't feel good when everything falls apart. I don't think I really will start over again. But the 3 times I definitely did. And that
Well, you never
felt
think
good.
you're going to. You never think you're going to. I mean, that's right. Like each time you're like, this is it.
Yeah, it's only in retrospect that you're like,
That's true.
oh, I
But
kind
not
of
everything fell apart to move to Africa. And that's really
No, that's what I mean. That's why it's
That
not
wasn't
really
feel bad.
before.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's
That was
didn't
just
feel
like
bad.
no. So that was just like I didn't like I did change my whole life moving here, but it wasn't because everything fell apart.
Yeah, it
Which
wasn't because of
which is
a
better.
pre-carnage sort of a
Well,
phase. Yeah.
It's getting better each
But
time.
it was kind of because you were really unhappy, you know, living
That's
in
true.
with the pressure of, you know,
Corporate
being
life.
this perfect mom and this feeling all these shoulds of what people are pressuring you to do. And so that's
Yeah.
really kind of why, right?
Actually, no, that is true. Actually, it was something that totally what happened. Well, for me, it was
Oh,
like
yeah.
the catalyst. I had a miscarriage. I had a miscarriage and because I was working too hard, trying to do everything. I was like, I have to get off this crazy train. Then I had a miscarriage and I was like, I am done with this. I
Yeah.
can't do any of this anymore. I'm
Yeah.
moving somewhere where I don't have to. And then we did. So yeah, I did everything. I
See?
started my whole life over always because one catalyst like throws
And like,
me
what
down
do you
my
think
God.
about Sarah? For Sarah,
know
to
we
do
just walked
something
by?
big though, like somebody's knocking her over the head with a club, is like, time to change. And she'd be like, I will never. And she holds on, and then
Yeah.
eventually, it does have to get bad for you usually to restart.
And then I change. And then when it does, I'm like, oh shit, change everything. And then I change everything.
So have you
Except
have
for
you ever
us.
looked back and
Yes.
thought, what if I didn't do that big change? Have you sort of walked through like how, you know, crappy things would have been if you didn't, and like so grateful that you had the courage and the strength and the support, or, you know?
Those types of reflections, I don't know about you, Sarah, but they scared the bejesus out of me. Like I just get so grateful that somehow I mustered up the courage to just try something different. Cause like, yeah, when you reflect back on holy shite, if I didn't make that change, where would I be? It usually goes very extreme into a resulting like, and then I died. Like it goes like that dramatic sort of a thing. Is
You're
that how it is for
dramatic.
you? Yeah. I know.
It'd
Weird.
be so
You
miserable.
were the most dramatic. I, mean, I think everyone's going to be just a little bit
Less
that
than
level.
that.
I like it.
I'm grateful for all my things that happened because it makes my life the way it is right now. The happiest it's been. Like every time I start over, it's like stairs. It's like every time I start over, I take another step up to the most happiness I've ever had. And then the next thing that happens, it's like another step up. And I'm like, oh, life is even better than I could imagine it could be. And then another step up, and now I'm here, living by the beach.
Motion.
That's a great analogy with the steps. That would make a good book cover if you wrote a book.
Oh.
Maybe that's
Leah,
Sarah's
you have
next
to-
project.
Uh-oh.
Are you going to be
Poetry.
sending editing?
Flag shop.
If you've enjoyed these video highlights, listen to the full episode on our YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts. Remember to like and subscribe, and ring that bell to be notified when new episodes are published. Find out more by going to www.bookinterrupted.com.
Never forget, every child matters.